Okay, should be good. Uh, yeah, so today I fell on a cactus and it didn't really hurt until recently, but I was doing a music stream tonight, fundraiser for the surgeries, and I just realized my wrist is too injured. And like as the hours go by, it's just more and more painful. So I thought I'd pop on and see if anybody would like to chat. I know we have people in the community that are in strange not strange, but different time zones, and can't always make the streams. So I thought I would pop on and see if anyone joins us, but they may not. No data. So it's on you guys if you have some sort of subject or question that you want to throw out there. Um, Willing to chat just because I'm going to be awake now. I plan to do the stream until 2 or 3 in the morning, the music stream, and this injury is not permitting it. So I am here for good or for worse. Only have 2 so far though, but for real, you guys have to throw something out there. Otherwise, I got nothing for you. Well, I mean, I guess I do. I always do if I just think about it for a second. I guess I'm just a little bit rattled from the realization that this injury is actually maybe significant. Like, it really hurts. Like, the spine jammed, like, way, way deep in there. And, yeah, that sucked. But it was a really cool walk. We went up to this waterfall. I mean, it's just nothing but waterfalls all the way up. There's a stream by our house, and I found these old walls, like old Incan ruin foundations and whatnot in the forest, and I had a little shot of San Pedro. That's why I know I'm not going to sleep until 4 in the morning or something. And I thought, well, can't play guitar. I'm awake, partner's asleep. Here we go. Here's something. Samsara from Hinduism. Um, yeah, I mean, I feel like I've been there, you know. uh, One of the things that bugs me about the idea of samsara, I guess, the cyclical wheel, right? This quantum loop theory, the idea that the universe collapses back into the singularity and reformulates itself, the overwhelming probability is that it would be exactly the same thing every time. And, I have an uncanny knack for precognition and, yeah, I mean, and also just, so it seemed like what had to be past life memories, but if you really think that through, remembering something that is accurate from another life could still just be bleed from this constant loop from last time, It's just you've done this before, and some of us have more bleed, like we pick up resonance because all of the information is always there, according to quantum physics, right? So the idea of needing to escape that. Like, if it changes every time, then that's fine. I don't mind doing that for all of eternity. That's okay. But if it's the same thing over and over again and we're trapped, like we have no way to like change our mistakes or, you know, make any improvements, that's a fucking nightmare. And according to the theoretical framework of quantum physics, it's not really out of the question. And in fact, it's kind of likely. So I don't know if that's a good answer, but that's the one that I got. Turning around in cycles. Anything else? Oh, man. Yeah, I mean, another thing that kind of supports all of that, I guess, is that when you watch the way that nature works, when you see the dissolution of things into the whole and then back again in the multiplicity, you know, this whole thing of things dissolving and then being reabsorbed and reconfigured, that's the universe. The thing is, though, I think that ideas like a quantum loop that is redundant don't really hold water, because I believe there is teleology in the universe. There's purpose behind everything. So, and also when cycles happen, there is change. You know, there's evolution, the seasons repeat, but it's not the same temperature every day on the same day, you know. So I think that it must be that there are subtle changes. The thing about escaping it, though, the wheel is turning and you can't slow down, you can't speed up and you can't hold on. Can't slow down and you can't stand still. If the thunder don't get you, then the lightning will. The thing about escaping it, I've wondered this about Buddhism, that it's a trap. You know, if the demiurgos is a real thing, which I kind of doubt, but I think it's just the sun. It's always Abraxas, you know, it's just the sun. But if so, imagine that you have people occasionally that like wake up from the lower levels of the programming of the animal soul, the political doctrine, the political indoctrination and brainwashing and religion and all this kind of stuff. And they start looking around and they're like, I need to like elevate myself and, you know, expand my consciousness and figure out what all this spirituality shit is about. And then they see this Buddhism as they're climbing up the golden road. You know, they're walking up the golden road, going to meet the wizard. And there's the Buddha. Exit stage right. Oh, okay. So what is this about? Completely dissolve the identity, let go of all attachment to this world, and then you don't have to suffer anymore. Oh, okay. And then as the person passes them on their way to the monastery, the Buddha's horns come out, and he's like, one less adversary on the earth, because this person is going to go and annihilate their ego and just become nothingness. You know, I don't trust it. I don't trust it at all. Satan may come as an angel of light, you know. Every single one of the institutionalized religions, I think, are, you know, they wouldn't have been institutionalized unless they served the purposes of the overlords. Period. End of story. You know, and something you'll notice about even Buddhism is that whether Buddhists are pacifists or not, I mean, not so much today, but historically had a lot to do with whether the kingdom was at war. All of a sudden they're warrior monks, and their karma, they'll get the same positive karma from killing people that they would have gotten from just sitting and being peaceful. So it seems to me that it's largely driven by the needs of the overlord, of the overlords. At this point, though, I think they're less reliant upon religion because people have sort of become devoid of substance and moral fiber. It's much easier for them to say, "Here, just take this gun and we'll give you some money," and good enough, good enough. What did the Incas think of cycles? I don't really know. I don't think much is known about the Incan beliefs. Let's look it up, but I don't think not much is known. Yeah, I mean, oh, that's interesting though. Listen to this shit. The Incas had 11-day weeks. The sun has 11-day solar cycle, 11-year solar cycles. So I'm glad you asked that because that is an interesting thing to discover. I mean, most of their lives revolved around the sun and cycles of the sun and gold. It is also highly suspicious to me, I think, that the conquistadors and the church went so far to destroy every single remnant of the Incan beliefs and also the Mayan. The Mayans actually had written language and they had a library, a huge library, and the church burned every single fucking book. Every single book. So I suspect, I mean, I know that what they did is they basically, in Albert Pike's Morals and Dogma, he says man had truth and found error. And when you start looking around the ancient world, you start to realize that there are certain things that are consistent. And it's not like this perennial philosophy idea that we have, well, it is the perennial philosophy, but when people talk about this with religion, they generally say like, it's always about being good and kind. And no, we're talking about much more deep technical details. Why do I have no eyebrows in this camera? It's really odd because I actually do have eyebrows. I can feel them. What was I saying? Oh, yeah. And you realize that they all knew that our consciousness came from the sun. They knew that gold had some connection to all of that, and it is true that our brain is loaded with gold. And if you take colloidal gold, every single function in your brain improves, right? Let's see how much gold is in the brain. Gold in the brain. It's quite a lot. And another question I have about that is where the fuck does it come from? Gold nanoparticles. There's gold in your brain. We now know where it came from. So did I already. I mean, why is there gold in the brain? It's funny because Google says there's not significant amounts of gold in your brain, but nanoparticles of gold can be treated, blah, blah, blah. But if you look up every other research paper, and they dispute what the Google AI says. But, consciousness comes from stars, right? Guess where the brain, the gold in your brain comes from? Stars, neutrino stars. When they collide, that's how most of the gold in the universe was generated. So now they're treating Parkinson's and multiple sclerosis and other sorts of brain deficits by delivering gold to the brain. But think about that. Light from the sun, gold from the sun. Gold interacts with photons in a way that nothing else does. If you eat small enough particles of it, they have a function in your brain. Star dust in your fucking head. like attracts like, right? So another one of my pet theories that that's why we hunt for gold. We look for gold because we know this deep down inside, this secret of the stars, this connection with our brain and consciousness and light and gold. But when people do things that are driven by a deep, profound instinct, but they are separated from the reasoning, it's madness. And that's why the Catholics, they came and killed all the Incas and they're doing all this crazy shit. They worship the sun too. They just didn't know it. They just didn't know it. So they knew that they were after this stuff, but they didn't really understand why. So they act like psychos. The Incas didn't kill for gold. The Incas didn't consider it valuable in that sense, but they surrounded themselves with it because they knew what it was for, as did the Syrians, Babylonians, North American natives. I don't know if all of them, but I know that several tribes at least considered gold to be worthless in the material sense because you can't make knives out of it. It's too malleable, but they did consider it sacred. And, being severed from this fundamental truth and then sort of masking it in this religion designed to create pacifists and mindless, non-thinking sheeple. Bad plan. Very, very bad plan. All right, so for those of you that just popped on, basically I had to cancel my music stream due to an injury, and so I'm awake, and I thought I would pop on and see if any of you guys have any questions or topics that you're interested in my opinion on. And I am a little bit dazed and kind of in pain, but as I was telling them earlier, I can't play guitar, and I can't go to sleep. So here I am at your disposal. We are still booking for retreats as well, so if you're interested in that, shoot me a message sooner than later because we don't have a lot of space, only 4 to 6 people maximum. And that's how we like it because large ceremonies are not ethical, in my opinion. Futurist? I don't know what you mean. I don't know what the Venus Project is either. Let me see. Futurist. What? I got futuristic elegance, and there's like a bunch of really weird looking models. Yeah. We used to call those psychics, I think, but this is a more analysis-based version. It's a really interesting thing because I have had a lot of really specific precognitions, and I've always wondered what mechanism could lie behind that, So I did some AI-assisted research into this, trying to determine if pattern recognition, because it happens so much that even my like step aunt, who is normal, she noticed it to the extent that she's like, I think your brain has really, really good pattern recognition, and that's how this happens. And I thought, okay, well, for example, during the Phoenix process period, I knew about the pandemic. I knew why. I knew about Depop. All of it, like, all just came into my head. And I was in the kitchen with the singer from my band one day actually, and I was just telling him all this stuff, and he was just kind of quiet because he'd seen enough weirdness around me that he wasn't going to write it off exactly. And he said, "Well, when is this going to happen?" And I stopped for a second, and I said, "The shit will officially hit the fan in 2020." So and there's other things too, like the alien. And a lot of this is on YouTube. You can check me. I predicted that AI would achieve sentience or show signs of it at the same time that disclosure happened because of symmetry. And that wasn't really so much a precognition, but a matter of analysis. It's not really that hard of a thing to do once you understand the symmetry. And, I don't really know how else to talk about it. But at any rate, I was curious as to whether pattern recognition could actually explain such specificity, right? Like, I haven't studied when pandemics happen. If there are patterns in history that would indicate that, you would have to know a whole bunch of dates and stuff. And other factors, that it doesn't really add up. I mean, the depopulation thing, and like I talked about the microchipping via jabs, and Elon Musk is now in both the brain chip business and the jab business. I mean, I don't know if pattern recognition really can do it, but according to AI, basically, long story short, yes, it could. Because the pattern in the algorithm basically fractalizes, but it doesn't change because it's a fractal. And so somehow all this variation somehow has almost the same structure as like the larger veins. I mean, you can see that when you look at the fractal patterns in a forest or veins, kind of. I don't know if that answers your question, but that's where I'm at with that, I guess. I don't know. Some of the things that have happened, I can't explain away with that. One of the weirdest things that ever happened to me in regards to this, man, there's a lot of them, but I received information about a celestial body in another star system, including the astrophysical explanation of like why the thing that was described to me was as it is. And there's no fucking way I would know this. No way. That's not something I'm interested in. It's not like I've read some layman astrophysics books and had it buried in my, No. And the paper that announced that it was true wasn't even published yet. It was like 5 days after I drank ayahuasca and received this information. And there were other layers to it. There were like this consciousness that's emanating from the star and the contents of it. That also was, I found in a student of Blavatsky's writings later. That kind of stuff, I can't really, pattern recognition doesn't quite do it. At the same time, I should offer the amendment that, or the caveat that most of the time when people claim to be channeling, it seems to me that they're full of shit. Bashar, for example, I've never seen him say anything that isn't in the Kabbalion. Like, if some interdimensional being has some message for humanity, it should be because it's something that humanity doesn't already know for thousands of years. I mean, that's kind of dumb, like, and most of the rest of it. Like, I think these things happen, but they happen so rarely, and when they happen to people that don't have enough skepticism and critical thinking skills, then they just think that everything they think after it happens once is some transmission, So it's a tough subject. It really is, because you can't discount chance, really. According to ChatGPT, though, I've had it run through some of the probabilities and stuff of chance of some of the things that I've experienced, and it's like, man, are you stupid? Like, at a certain point, it's dumber to invoke chance than it is to say something supernatural is happening here. So, difficult balance to strike. That's why we have adepts. It's why we have systems of initiation and hierarchy, and or we used to, and we need to again, I guess. Aristotle was right when he said that if the mystery traditions were lost or corrupted, so was humanity. Look at us. Base on Venus? Let me look. I don't know what you mean. Is there a base on Venus? Do we have a base on Venus? I don't see why, man. Venus is so hot and toxic. Like a lot of my exes. Yeah, man. I don't know if you're asking if I think there could be bases on Venus, but I seriously don't see why there would be. Like, what fucking purpose is there? What is the point? I mean, there's a lot of information that we don't have in the universe, but I cannot see what in the fucking hell the point would be of going to super hot, toxic planet like that and trying to do something. I mean, they're thinking about it, obviously. I don't know what the fuck for, but they're thinking about sending blimps. It's wild that, like, you look at, like, Elon Musk wanting to go to Mars, and this anti-environmentalist stance that the right likes to take, it's not because the Earth isn't in trouble. It's because they want to get the technology and take all the resources and get the fuck out of here before the planet dies. And so they don't want to be slowed down by any asshole EPA or whatever trying to tell them not to destroy everything. That's what that's about, I think. They know this is a sinking ship if we continue to live the way that we are in the numbers that we have without any real unified sense of purpose. That's it. They want to get the fuck out of here. Or then they may know something we don't, These solar storms that are building until June, at least, are the biggest in 11 years since the last one peaked. Of course, magical expansion, right? If a coronal injection large enough hits the planet, we would have a blackout. And it would be extremely problematic in a lot of ways because, like, information on credit cards would be wiped out. All sorts of electromagnetic data would be gone. But the blackout scenario with the power, the chaos and the misery that would follow, no one can get food, no one can be warm if they're cold, or vice versa. It's almost unthinkably bad, and it wouldn't take long before it turned into like a zombie apocalypse. It'd be like a couple of days at most. Really, as soon as the real deviants realized that all the cops are at home defending their families, so that's a possibility that the grid could go down in a couple months. Because when it peaks, man, they already had some disruptions somewhere. I can't remember what happened, but solar flares have at least had some effect. It's also interesting. Somebody pointed out to me the other day that like MRIs basically use radiation, the influence of electromagnetic radiation, to compel electrons and presumably other particles into higher states of symmetry, which right before the current round of solar storms started, I predicted that. First of all, I knew it was happening before I knew there were solar storms. I just told my partner, I think another round of the Phoenix process is coming, only bigger and badder this time, and then the synchronicity started on a level that was like absurd. Like it was like 2 days after I said that or something, we went to Cusco and we saw a band. It was my son's first time seeing a live band, and for no reason at all, I mentioned this Red Hot Chili Peppers song, and then we stood up to leave, and they went into that song. Stuff like that started happening, like daily, and then I found out the solar storms were increasing, and the solar storm was one of the catalysts for this process. And also Rupert Sheldrake, I found years later saying that solar storms he thought were an opportunity for the consciousness on this planet to interface more directly with that of the sun. And so I guess I'm not alone in this belief. That, and also every ancient culture in human history, also those guys. But yeah, I didn't put that together, that the increased radiation from the sun should create more expressions of higher orders of symmetry. And so this intuition I had that there would be an increase in those kind of experiences that was reflected in reality also has some basis in physics, which I like it when that happens. Certainty, not faith. Howdy. Hey, we're picking up a few people here. Have I seen the movie Metropolis? For those of you that don't know what's going on, you have an injured and somewhat shell-shocked IllumiGnostic here available to answer questions and riff on topics. But so far, this guy's been hitting me with a bunch of stuff I don't know anything about, which I'm not trying to be cocky, but that doesn't usually happen. The movie Metropolis, no, I haven't. I have not. So, I mean, I know you guys are out there thinking stuff during the streams. And you ask questions, and I'm just too busy in my train of thought to answer everything. So, it's funny. I always get tons of questions when I have something that I'm specifically trying to talk about that have nothing to do with whatever it is that I'm trying to talk about. And then I do AMAs, and I don't get any questions. By the way, don't forget to hit the like button. Become a patron if you're not. You get access to stuff for years of it, lots of it, all kinds of stuff, Masonic secrets from this big fat. Should I just do some bibliomancy and open this? Ow, fuck, man. Those of you that don't know, the injury is from a cactus. I fell on a cactus today. I didn't really fall on it. I was climbing up a hill on my hands and knees, and I just like stuck my hand in the area of it really hard and fast because I was trying to grab the grass, and just slammed it into like the spine was like all the way up to the middle of my. It went in there. Oh, you guys probably can't see the. Oh, maybe you can't see the hole. I don't know. There's a hole right there. Right there, and then the spine stopped like there. It was nasty, man. Pulling it out was so goddamn painful, but it didn't hurt until I started playing guitar tonight. And then I was like, oh, fuck. I'm out of commission. Looks like my bibliomancy may have failed to pull up anything really interesting. That usually doesn't happen with this book either. Well, there's an interesting point. He mentions everything actual must have been possible before having actual existence, and this possibility or potentiality was to the Kabbalists a real ends. Before the evolvement of the universe, it had to exist potentially, the whole of it, with all of its individuals included in a single unity. This was the idea or plan of the universe, and this had to be formed. It had to emanate from the infinite deity and be of himself, though not his very self. And that's true. An acorn, you cannot grow a pig from an acorn. And that supports the quantum loop theory. The whole macrocosm, microcosm thing, the secret to Hermetic knowledge really is to realize, like, if it's true of an acorn, then it's probably true of a universe, because truth is truth. Truth does not, it's not malleable. It doesn't, acquiesce to conform to the standards of whatever thing. The truth is the truth. Therefore, if it's true of an acorn, it is true of a universe. And so this idea of a quantum loop, where everything that exists had to have the seed of that potential in the nothingness, right? And we are indeed made of nothingness. We're mostly empty space. Everything is mostly empty space. So we got that covered. And if you want to find infinity, you divide by 0. So it contains everything. Doesn't really help me conceptualize exactly what, basically what it's saying is this idea we started talking about is that when the light returns to the, void, and then it collapses back into the singularity, it is exactly the same thing over and over again. The same people, the same story, the same plants, the same evolutionary paradigms. And it's all written in the book of nature. That's the thing, One of the biggest lies I think we've been told in the history of humanity is that truth is subjective. That's the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard in my life. It's completely false. It's not true at all. Actually, it's not true. Everything is true and false. It's true to the extent that you have some influence over your environment that may make your experience in terms of what is possible and what is not possible slightly different from that of someone else. But overall, truth is not subjective. That's stupid. And one of the reasons that it was put out there, I believe, is to keep people from finding the truth. Truth is not subjective. It's fucking not. And what was the other aspect of this that I needed to tie together? Yeah, and also we're told that reason and logic cannot be applied to spiritual knowledge. This also is fucking stupid. There are places where it breaks down. Like if you try to observe a photon, the more closely you look at it, the more quantum fluctuations there are. So it's almost like the creator put safeguards in the universe so we can't know too much. There are places where definitely our ability to pierce the veil are just limited. But the entire book of nature, or the real scripture of the universe, is written large upon the land for those who have eyes to see it. And that means if you understand what divide by zero really is telling you, if you understand an acorn, you understand a galaxy to a degree and in a sense. But that's the real pathway to knowledge. And I really do believe that those two things I mentioned are deliberately engineered and imposed upon humanity in order to keep them not really trapped. That's the thing. The real truth, I think, is functional. Because, we see the evils in the world and we assume that they are wrong. In a sense, they are, because everything is true and false. But in terms of the big picture of the universe, not a grain of sand that's out of place. There can't be, because that's how the law of necessity works. And so the slumber of humanity, the indoctrination, the propaganda, the, keeping people in their place. Do you think the great artists, bands like Tool, would be Tool without millions of dollars to, that we would have all these innovations and there has to be a support system, and the pyramids, for example. The pyramid is the most stable geometric shape. And people say, oh, it's so wrong, 1% at the top. Yeah, in a sense it is, but guess what? Everything in the universe is like that. Like 1% or less of a coal mine is diamond. That's just structural, And the thing is, if you think of civilization as a giant organism, if all of the cells in your body suddenly just wanted to do shit and they weren't just only as aware as they needed to be to perform their function, you would die instantly. The moment they all woke up, you would just fucking die. Think about this. And so, those of us that are awake really are the chaos in the system, literally. The fucking chaos, the free radicals. The ones that are sleeping, and this has taken me forever to figure out, my dumbass my whole life, like, we got to wake them all up. Try it. Go ahead. Go on. Get back to me when you're done. It's not happening. It may happen as part of a process. It's kind of happening now, I think. But that's the reality of it. I don't know if it makes you feel better or worse, really. It's like, okay, well, this is how it's supposed to be, or it would be some other way. So now what? Yeah, man, watching the political shit in the United States is just absolutely fucking mind-melting. What do you think about Mimosa hostilis versus Acacia confusa for an ayahuasca analog? I don't have a lot of experience with that because I've lived in South America since I've been drinking ayahuasca, basically. Mimosa hostilis I've used. I mean, I can answer that from a chemical entourage point of view and also from a shamanic point of view, I guess, just based on what I know, which isn't direct experience, except for Mimosa hostilis. But I haven't taken Acacia confusa as the DMT plant. But I'm sure you know the entourage effect, right? Like if you take sebel seeds or yopo or whatever, there's like 175 alkaloids in there or something, and there's like 12 or 15 DMT analogs, or related compounds, forms of DMT. And so, there's differences from tree to tree, even much less from Peregrina to Calabrina. But as far as Mimosa hostilis goes, you definitely want to remove the tannins, or it's going to make you way too sick. I mean, purging is good, but not that much purging. And Chaliponga, for example, is a vine, and chacruna is a bush with very stringy leaves, as is oh god, there's another plant they use in Ecuador. It's related to chacruna. I can't remember. Amiruca is another, basically Ecuadorian chacruna. But the point is that from a shamanic point of view, you use the springy stuff for the mental kind of work. And Mimosa hostilis is the root bark. And so it's a more grounded, earthy, deep, cleansing, emotional kind of, that nature. And so Acacia confusa, I believe, is a tree, right? So I would imagine that would be in the middle between the vines and bushes and the roots, because I'm not sure if you use the bark from Acacia confusa or the leaves. I really don't know anything about Acacia confusa. But I can tell you what people have told me. I definitely know people that prefer Acacia confusa to the other in terms of the physical effects, and also the structure of the visions, I've heard, is significantly different. Let me see. I don't know why I've never really looked at this. Yeah, it's the bark, right? Yeah. Yeah, it's the best I can do on that. What do you think? Wait, Trump's new executive. Trump's executive orders. I don't know so much specifically about the executive orders, but you guys mostly probably know where I stand on this. The whole thing is a sham. It's a sham. It's a scam. I predicted it in 2016. Described all of this shit. If you don't believe me, go watch the fucking videos. All of it, because I understand propaganda and psychology. I know what they're doing, and it's not hard. It's not fucking hard, and it's terrifying to see it. RFK Jr. I fell for him for about 30 seconds before I realized, no, man, there's something wrong with this dude. And sure enough, he's, I haven't vaccinated my kid. I vaccinated my kids, but you shouldn't vaccinate your kids. And, oh, no, I'm not going to take any money from Big Pharma. But are you going to take money from lawsuits against vaccine companies? Well, yeah, probably. He's full of shit, man. They're all just getting paid to play roles. None of it's fucking real. None of it is real. Trump started wearing a purple tie because purple is a combination of red and blue. They're going to get rid of the left. They're going to get rid of the Democratic Party, consolidate it under one banner, and it's going to be totally fucking fascist. Fascist technocracy. The rest of the world is getting health care. He just canceled Medicaid. Americans are the most severely brainwashed, zombie-like creatures on the entire planet, by far. Like, it's insane. It's a nut house. It really is. It's a gigantic fucking nut house. And there are people that are not really too involved with all that, that aren't really in a nut house, but mostly there's like this kind of like, hello, like this vacancy in Americans. It's scary, man. It's really fucking scary. And the best thing you can do to really wrap your head around it is to get the fuck out of there and go to another country and you're like, holy shit, everything they tell you is a lie. Like Peru, you think it's dangerous? Lima's the most dangerous city and it's not in the top 50. The chaos in South America, shut the fuck up. Like, what do you mean? You know, shit happens for sure. Things went crazy in Ecuador last year, like it happens. But for the most part, if you're not in like a major city, people are just nice. No one's greedy. People aren't out to rip you off. You don't have to lock your doors. The United States is a fucking hellhole. It really is, compared to like the rest of the world. And it's about to get a lot fucking worse. A lot worse. They will make it better for a second in order to really get people sold on Trump and to consolidate power under one party. But it won't last. It's just a trick. So the only thing you can do is get your assets together now. Speaking of assets, please become a patron. Consider supporting the channel. We're demonetized. But yeah, get your assets together quick. Crypto will probably still make some big moves because they're trying to rally people into the controlled currency, you know, social credit shit. They're trying to rally people into that, so crypto's going to go insane. And if you're smart enough, you know, learn some Fibonacci retracement, keep a close eye on the politics. They're going to do it without warning, whatever they're going to do when they pull the rug. But if you can get in there, get your money out, turn it into gold and a property and a bunch of resources like, you know, physical shit, you can, every crisis is an opportunity. So that's what I think about that. That's what I know. This is not a political opinion. It's not an opinion. It's a fact. Absolutely fact. They really, I think they even got Trump to like take some classes on trying to act like he wasn't such a dick or something, because he's been like a lot more polite and like acting a lot more warm to people, and you know, I don't buy it for a second. Not for a fucking second. You're not just a snake your entire life, and then suddenly you're like, I think I'm going to be a superhero and take on the deep state. Think about this. Listen to this logic today. Somebody commented this, something about, I said 34 felonies and not a day in jail, and this is the deep state's biggest enemy, and they've got him at his mercy. He was convicted. He wasn't in there like, well, their felonies were bullshit. It's like, okay, well, he was convicted. He was at their mercy. Not a day in jail. And all the way back in 2016, I said, watch. They will set him up to be a martyr, political persecution, the perception of it, probably charge him with a bunch of felonies, all this shit. I told you they were going to do this. Proof. Can't say I didn't. Can't say it's what got me demonetized. I told this to 20,000 people. 20,000 fucking, well, actually 16,750 or something. Huge stream. $34 felonies, not a day in jail. And the logic they use is, oh, well, it was bullshit felonies. Okay. So they're after him enough to persecute him and charge him with a bunch of fake felonies and then not use them to get rid of him. Your logic is moronic. It's so obviously false and stupid. It's mind-blowing. Like in the worst possible way. Think about it. You're acknowledging the persecution is fake. This commenter. You're acknowledging it, and you're so determined to believe the bullshit that you're like literally typing the evidence and staring at it and then trying to act like it's something else. It's incredible. I've always understood that propaganda is powerful, but I've never would have imagined something this bad. And then don't even start with that. Well, the Dems, blah, 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 blah. It's all an act. It's all an act. Biden does not that he doesn't have that much of a hard time speaking. As soon as he got out of office, point a camera at him, and he's like articulate, clear. It was all an act. It's all an act. And Democrats played their role, and the purpose was to make everyone hate them and make them look incompetent. If they wanted to have competent leaders, they just would. They can cull them from Harvard, Princeton, fucking, you know what I mean? Don't be dumb. It's clearly not real. Why would they answer Trump with an old demented man that called little black girls cockroaches and said that about Obama, he dropped out of the race against Obama because he said, a clean, educated black man, you just don't get that. The guy eulogized a Klan member. They did that on purpose. It's part of the strategy of propaganda. It's part of the inculcation of cognitive dissonance is part of the thing. Like, just stop it with this shit. I'm so over it. Most of the shit he's talking is like the border wall. He asked if I think there'll really be a full-scale land invasion. They don't want to stop the cartels. He doesn't want to stop the cartels. They need that money for, black flag operations and shit. They're not gonna fucking raid the cartels. And if they do, it's just to steal all their drugs and take over their processing plants. That's what they did in Afghanistan. Well, I appreciate that best show in the world comment. It does get frustrating sometimes that I know that I'm saying things that need to be heard and they're not supporting that. The algorithm is. But they let me get up to 20, like I said, 20,000 people in a stream, and they were like, whoa, slow down, dude, you're not, What was the other question? No, I thought I saw something else. Oh, ayahuasca and diet. I mean, most of the dieta actually comes from, like, vegan retreat owners that have an agenda, and they just want people to think that ayahuasca wants you to be vegan and peaceful. And I happen to know otherwise because I worked with Schwar, and they'll eat a monkey and drink ayahuasca and then eat a monkey afterwards. Like, not if they're training to become a shaman. Then it's 3 years without meat and sex. 3 years. But the way to think about it is that, what you eat, there are not just the major things, like whether it's got sugar in it or, nutritional factors and whatnot. It's also complex, chemical reactions and peptides and the amino acids and, all these more subtle things. And when you're trying to attenuate yourself to receive a certain bandwidth of consciousness, then engineering your chemical environment, you can really fine tune it to be receptive to certain things. So a lot of what they say about ayahuasca and the dieta is garbage that white people made up. Ashaninka women that I know, Ashaninka are probably third in the ranking of, like, the, plant medicine totem pole. There's Shipibo, Schwar, and Ashaninka. She told me that, the real standard diet has always been plantains and fish. What else would it be? For ayahuasca, that they wouldn't just eat whatever in her tribe, but it was no meat, fish and bananas. I've seen a lot of ridiculous shit too. One day this kid was running his mouth and he's like, my maestro has a lineage of 5,000 years, and I'm like, well, nobody can trace their lineage back 5,000 years, especially not without a written language. But okay. And he's like, and we've been serving the same dieta for all those 5,000 years, chicken and white rice. I'm like, You realize chicken and white rice have been in South America for less than 200 years, right? Or like 200 years, whatever. 200 years, I guess. It's fucking stupid. There's, that how, there's, my point just basically is that there is so much bullshit in the ayahuasca community, I guess, that it's like, it's sad, really. Yeah, like I told you in the stream earlier, man. That's how it is. He who speaks the truth has few friends. That's a fact, man. People, I was out on the deck earlier and actually had the thought, like, nothing pisses people off more than being told the truth. I don't understand it. I really don't. I don't understand why the mystery and the genius that is integrated into the fabric of reality is such a problem for so many people. It doesn't track in my mind. That is the most exciting thing to me. I have a lot of prowess, I guess, when it comes to metaphysics, but that's largely because I never decide I know anything for sure. Like, very few things. Like, what's going on in the United States, I know that's one of the few things I ever would really say, like, I'm pretty certain about. Absolutely certain about. But this idea that there's some sort of, that intelligence is not generated by neurons, that awareness is not generated by neurons, this is such a paradigm shifting. This is the fundamental thing that defines the last paradigm, the ultra materialist atheist kind of position is demolished. It's got hit in the face with a fucking wrecking ball. It's dead. It's done. And not only are people not hearing about it because of the echo chambers of social media, they are enraged at the thought. Ego has a lot to do with it too. People are pissed to find out everything they think is wrong. Nothing they thought was true is but the thing I don't understand, I guess, is what I'm saying is that I would find the idea of an integrated intelligence in the universe, of non-neural cognition and possibly awareness, because that indicates the potential for afterlife, reincarnation. All of these things are no longer at odds with science. That should be comforting. The fact that they will just cling to whatever belief it is. It doesn't matter if it's like empty and sterile and bland and vapid and toxic. If they've become accustomed to it, they have identified with it, they will fight to the death to defend it. And that whole materialist paradigm, that's included. Yeah, no, like I said in the other stream, I was skeptical of Raiden's claims as well, but partly because people that say this kind of shit are always full of shit. The idea that you can manifest things by thinking about it is very appealing to people, and it's not even entirely false. But it is not how New Age fucking, the law of attraction coaches paint it either. It just isn't. There's just much more to it than that. It takes way longer than that. And if you blow it when the thing comes around, it's just people will pay to be told what they want to hear. So we have a lot of bullshit in the spiritual community or whatever, obviously, And then also, I think a lot of it is generated by the establishment. You know, the flat Earth thing. I totally believe that was a psyop. It's a matter of public information that the CIA created the term conspiracy theory in 1963 or 64 in response to JFK assassination, so that they could discredit people that were questioning it. You know, and they've been caught many times creating movements that are designed to have some effect, you know, and flat Earth is one of those. That's a wild one that, like, anyone can even try to believe that. I did a debate with flat earthers a few years ago, and I never got the tapes because they just when they were getting just embarrassed and mutilated, they started threatening me and my entourage, all the people that were with me, old ladies and stuff, like threatening to kill them. The one woman had cancer, and they had a Navy SEAL mercenary, real one. We come up to her and say, "Aren't you dying of cancer? I should just kill you now and get it over with." You know, I was like, "Oh, praise Jesus! Yeah, you guys are, you guys are real holy people." But at the end of that debate, the guy's like closing argument or whatever, he said, "The sun's electric. You can tell by looking at it." I was like, "Bitch, where is it plugged in? Like, is there a fucking power cord hanging off the back somewhere?" And like, what you know? And then I realized there was like 200 of them too. I had no idea that this was in Vilcabamba, Ecuador, and there's all these like conservative Christian fucking flat Earth morons, and they filled this revival tent, and they actually set me up. They planned to go after me, because, you know, I'm a former Mason and an initiate of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, and I talk about these things in a positive light, including the Illuminati. And also, I've talked about the Lucifer myth and what it really means, and some of them had seen all this. And so they were like, "Okay, we'll lure him here, and then we can like, you know, connect science and shit to this satanic cabal, because this guy's obviously one of them." And at the end, one of them, he was in my band at one point, jumped up and he's like, "He tried to get me in his cult with pentagrams." And I was like, "What, Jiminy? What the fuck, man?" What actually happened is that he was worried that he had entities pursuing him. And I don't even believe in that sort of thing. But I said, well, you can use the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram to clear your energy bubble, your microcosm. And I do believe that. So, you know, I explained to him how it was done and stuff, and there's nothing evil about it. But that's what he said. He tried to get me into his cult with his pentagrams and shit. And I started to realize what was actually going on, that I'd been lured by these religious people to this weird agenda. Fucking morons, man. It's a wild world. Yeah, no, it can't be flat, man. I live in South America. I've also lived in North America. There are different stars. We have seasons. The sun. There's no working flat Earth model that explains how the light is distributed. Like, it's not hard. It's not hard. Also, why is everything else in the sky a sphere? I mean, people that say that space is fake, right? As if you have to be, you know, a government agency to buy a fucking high-powered telescope and like look at stuff, and then you can't actually figure out about how far away it is by just pointing it at objects. Like, I mean, it's you know, come on, come on, y'all, come on, y'all. Questioning the matrix and questioning the accepted narratives does not mean that you have to become a fucking moron. I don't know who made this rule or why people think that it's, a legitimate thing. That here's the problem. Here's the problem. I can offer a solution even. Fucking hell. It's true though. It's true. The problem is that people are too smart for their own good, but not smart enough for the general good. They're smart enough to, some of them, or something happens, and they're like pried out of their fucking mind forged manacles, their cultural provisional programming, and they look around and they're like, oh shit, society is fake, and there's some devious shit going on, and so where are the alternative narratives? But when you leap out of one box, you haven't just like grown critical thinking skills just because you know what I mean? There's still the same, I don't want to use the word idiot, but you're still the same person. And so, they don't, you just all of a sudden you're just like out of the box, but you're still kind of a moron. And you know what I mean? Unless you happen to have all the critical thinking skills and the fucking, what do they call it? The, your toolkit of skills. I can't remember the word because I've been an outlaw my entire life and I don't use language like that. You know what I mean? Yeah, so then they just end up like, oh, the earth is flat and fucking demons are running the earth and there's shape-shifting aliens in the White House and all this shit. And it's like, dude, David Icke works for the CIA. Fucking, what's his name? The other asshole. I'm Alex Jones and I'm a big fat dumbass. That guy. He's an operative. That fucking bald dude with no chin. Fucking crypto guy, whatever. With the Bugatti. What color is your Bugatti, bitch? That dude. His dad was CIA. Carlson Tucker. Families and Intelligence. Alex Jones, Families and Intelligence. You know what I mean? When you get out of the mainstream narrative, you have to be more suspicious of all the alternative narratives, because what do you do when your fucking sheep gets away? You send a dog out to fucking bring it back into the herd. That's what all these alternative narratives are. That's what Alex Jones is. That's what David Icke is. That's what all of them. It doesn't matter if you don't believe the mainstream narrative, as long as you believe something fucking stupid that is a complete waste of time. That's what matters. You know what I mean? That's what fucking matters. So that's what nobody gets, You escape the mainstream narrative. You need to develop a bunch of critical thinking skills and educate yourself and study philosophy, and don't just get on the internet and say, oh, see what a bunch of drooling retards think. Okay, I'm going to think this too, No, man, that's not how it goes. That's not the script to follow. That is not the script to follow. To stop thinking like one mob and then adopt the thoughts of a different mob. It means think for your fucking self. It takes courage, bitches. It does. But that's no excuse not to do it. So what if he's from a Rosicrucian bloodline? There's nothing wrong with the Rosicrucians. So am I. Of course this shit is in my blood. Are you kidding me right now? Should we talk about how among the false narratives is the one that the Illuminati is evil? It's not. The whatever is going on in Hollywood and in the government and stuff has nothing to do with the historical Illuminati. they realized that there were certain entities that had Weishaupt did. Weishaupt, I don't know how to say his name. I've only read it. I've never heard it. Weishaupt. Weishaupt. I think it means one house or something. I don't know. Anyways, no, it doesn't mean that. Oh yeah, no. He was trying to subvert the totalitarian system that's coming, and he realized that it was possible to teach illumination and that the religions were false, but that there was something, and he called that rational enlightenment. And they wanted to get rid of borders so that there could be no wars. And the thing is, what people don't understand, the New World Order as it is now formatted is about consolidating power. Before the elimination of the borders, the idea is that the illumination would already be spread around the planet, and then when you decentralize government, it would be like decentralized crypto. You just don't need it. In fact, one of the Illuminati spokesmen, what was his name? The Phoenix de Comte. Might be Phoenix de Comte, actually, but he said the absolute rule of the state shall be a function of the absolute liberty of the individual will. And when you hear that at first, it's like, that doesn't make sense. And it's like, well, it's because it's a paradox, dummy. It doesn't make sense, except that it does. And the reason it does is this. Capitalism, socialism, communism, any ism-schism game that you apply is not going to do any fucking good, because communism is not inherently evil. Socialism is not inherently evil. Capitalism is not inherently evil. But as long as they're corrupt people holding the reins, all of this shit is going to turn out badly. Look at the U.S. Look at, China's doing better than the U.S. It's communist. Case in point. Like, they have it way better than people in the U.S. do now. People are finding this out, and they're like, what? We've been lied to our whole life? Like, yeah, about everything, stupid. Come on. Come on, dude. Come on. Snap out of it. Snap the fuck out of it. But if you can change the consciousness of the whole planet, then any of those things will work fine. That's the reality. And that's what Weishaupt knew, and that's why it's called the Illuminati. Does that really sound like an organization that's trying to make you stupid and enslave the planet? People are just like, there's nobody home. There's nobody fucking home, man. I have never met a conspiracy theorist that has actually read Adam Weishaupt's papers that were seized from his sock drawer. Not one. You can read what the guy was writing to himself privately online. And yet you're going to believe Alex Jones and David Icke instead of just looking at the papers the guy wrote himself that were seized from his fucking sock drawer. I don't know why this world keeps turning round and round, but sometimes I wish it would stop and let me off. I mean, that really is such an egoic thing to say. Like, it doesn't need to stop to let you off. It will let you off. Trust. Holy shit, we kept everybody after I said the Illuminati wasn't actually evil? Damn, that's a first, man. Holy shit. Solomon was a meddler? What? Dim, do, unwan, this, and man. Yeah. Kabbalah is awesome. It's true. Sometimes this feels like more of a priority than life. What? What are your thoughts on nicotine? Got some right here, and I'm about to put it in my nose. Nicotine is extremely fucking deadly. One drop of it is more deadly than a drop of rattlesnake venom. You could swallow a drop of rattlesnake venom, but a drop of nicotine will kill you, which isn't really a good analogy because venom, that's the difference between venom and poison, but the toxicity is higher for nicotine. Liter per liter, or whatever the measurement would be, milliliter. Not even, I don't know what drops are. gotas, we call them here in South America. But yeah, on the other hand, all poison is medicine in some manner. Like ergot fungus that makes LSD, which I consider the most like important chemical on the planet, it will fucking kill you, and it's a terrible way to die. Nicotine is an extremely helpful substance when used properly. And in fact, I'll tell you the story that I got from a shaman about where tobacco, supposedly how they started using it, and the instructions that were given that no one follows. And the mapacho tobacco that we use in the jungle is actually not. It is tobacco, but it contains Nicotiana rustica. It's like 16 to 20 times as much nicotine, and harmala alkaloids that are the same ones that are found in ayahuasca. There are not really significant quantities of them, so it's more mild, but it does help to connect you to that level of your awareness, the intuitive. And also provides tremendous mental clarity. In fact, before we drink ayahuasca at our retreats, because, I'm not really a person that I consider tradition basically the baggage of our ancestors. To an extent, that doesn't mean that I have no reverence for it or that I don't ever incorporate it, as I'm about to explain. So I was taught in the Shwar way, and so part of the deal is that you don't change anything. So as soon as the fire is lit and everyone is seated, spirits are real, and you know what I mean? Like, I'm in Shwar mode, and I don't necessarily have the same ontological model when I leave the ceremony, but it's, that initiation is, you have to keep it that way, just like in the Hermetic tradition or any other shamanic tradition on earth. And so the protocol is that the tobacco, the Nicotiana rustica, the mapacho, is cooked in water for just a few minutes and then let it sit overnight, or you could let it sit overnight first and then boil it, whatever, it doesn't matter. Point is, it soaks and it gets hot, and then you pour it into your hand and you place it under your nose, and then you take it through the nose, and it has to go in both nostrils, and you're supposed to try not to spill a drop. And the reason is that for the Shwar and anybody else with a lick of sense, you don't send your prayer to some sky god that doesn't exist, where it's just like gunpowder in the void, right, with no cartridge or fucking nothing to direct it, or steam without a pipe to power the train. You direct your will at the thing. That's what prayer is. And you don't prostrate yourself on the ground before Great Spirit. You sit up with self-respect. You don't fucking grovel, because it reflects you. Whatever you are giving out, you're going to get back from it. So you open yourself up to this other dimension with these energies and potentially beings, and then you're groveling and shit, it's going to fucking tear you to pieces. This whole fear of God thing is like this slave mentality. And so the tobacco is taken to focus the mind, because your mind is interacting with these quantum particles, and it has to be focused to like laser precision in order to be effective. And so the tobacco, before you go into the ayahuasca space through the nose, you set your intention, and then if you need to vomit, you take the tobacco, and if you get confused or overwhelmed, you take the tobacco, snap you right back to focus. And then at the end of the ceremony, in order to imprint everything that's happened and make sure you retain it, you take the tobacco through the nose. So at least 3 times, or at least twice, sorry. And if you have an issue or want it even, then you just ask me, and you get the tobacco for your nose. And it's also considered one of the best medicines. Actually, in Ecuador, I think it's number 1 with most of the tribes, the mapacho. It's like the most important medicinal plant in the jungle. And also, I used to have a really bad temper, like dangerous. And drinking tobacco mostly cured it, but taking it, I can't believe I let this girl talk me into this either, but I drank it, and she's like, that wasn't good enough. You need to do an enema. And I was like, what? What? You're going to put tobacco up my butt? But I did it, and it was wild, man. When I came out of the bathroom, I felt like just so raw and just, I don't know how to describe it, really raw. And she took my hands and she goes, whatever you were holding, may it fall to the core of the earth. And at that moment, there was a fucking earthquake. The house was blah, 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 blam, blam. Books are falling off the shelves and shit. Like, I didn't get it at first. I'd never been in an earthquake before, but right at that moment, man. And it was brief, and I honestly thought the owner of the house, he was an alcoholic. I thought he wrecked his truck into the house or something. I didn't know what was happening. And, it was just a couple of, 10 seconds maybe, and she's like, damn, you really were carrying something. That was nuts, man. Completely crazy. But yeah, tobacco is good medicine, but you have to respect it, Mapacho also, by the way, I don't smoke unless I chew coca, and I've been chewing coca pretty often here, but, how long have I been sitting here? I mean, I'll take a puff or something, but the point is that even if I chew coca every night and then I have some Mapacho, because it kind of levels you out. In fact, I might take a break and I got to go outside to have the Mapacho now that you brought it up, or maybe I'll just have this rape, but I don't even think about it if I don't chew coca. It's not like the habit comes back. I was a heavy smoker for a long time. And I quit using 100 micrograms of LSD and pranayama. It took 1 hour. And I forgot that I literally washed myself in 1 hour on acid because of the enhanced neuroplasticity and neurogenesis. I forgot that I was a smoker of 25 years until I found my tobacco pouch in my pocket at 8 o'clock or 7:30 or something the next day. And I was like, oh, shit, wow. I would have normally, the first thing I would do is roll a cigarette when I woke up, And so now even since I chew I chew coca, I smoke a little bit. If I don't chew coca, I don't have any, in fact, it's not even appealing. It's interesting. I wonder if it's because, I suspect it's because they put all kinds of other bullshit in the commercial cigarettes that's far more addictive because I have I might smoke half a little Mapacho thing a night for 3 days in a row or something and then not think about it for weeks. So, I don't know. Oh, let me tell you the story, too, about how the shaman told me that they discovered tobacco. I never mix salvia with acid. I fucking wouldn't do that either. What is the cannabis situation like where you live? I don't smoke marijuana. How much is coca where you are? Pretty cheap. I don't really know how to answer that question because I don't weigh it. You just give them 5 soles or something and get a bag that lasts a couple of days. Pretty cheap. I can send it ground. I can't send whole plants though. Chacruna, pastes, various types, but I can't talk too much about that. Send me an email if you're curious what I mean. What was I gonna? Oh yeah, the buffalo thing. So the story that I got is that these 2 guys from 2 different tribes were walking along together, and they saw this pale woman with long blonde hair, and she was holding a tobacco leaf. Probably a cancer, lung cancer casualty from the future. Now that I think about it, and she was holding a tobacco leaf, and the first man on the right had dirty thoughts, and he's like, look at this exotic woman. I bet I could bend her over and do all kinds of fucking blah, 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 and then she just vanished from his point of view. And the other guy was like, wonder what I could learn from this woman. And he approached her with respect, and she spoke to him in his own language and said, this plant that I'm holding is tobacco, and you can dry it, smoke it, you can make teas. There are even tabaqueros that juice it live and drink it, man. Yikes, dude. Holy shit, I'm so scared of that. Too much for me, man. No thanks. But anyways, so she answered him in his own language and said, "You can try it and smoke it, but don't ever inhale the smoke into your lungs, only into your mouth. Only use it during ceremony. And if you treat it with respect and you use it properly, it will guide you in your decisions. It will help you to preserve your health. And there are ones that will come after me that look like me, and they will use it to create addiction and disease and destruction. You must always keep it sacred, keep it secret, and keep it safe." And she turned into a white buffalo and ran away. That's the legend. The forests here are crawling with white buffalo women. Oh yeah, does somebody talk about chewing salvia? Yeah, I can't stand the body load, so that's enough for me to just not do it. But yeah, they say if you chew it, it is better, and also you need to raise the plant yourself. You don't. The Mazatec say that you can't just go get a salvia plant and just use it. You need to raise it yourself, or else it won't like you, and it won't. It's like going to try to pet somebody's pit bull or something. You're not supposed to do that. You need to raise it yourself if you want it to love you and trust you, and then you can trust it back. Wow. Blew it a bit too hard. All right. Well, it's almost 2 a.m. here, so I have a little bit more time. If you guys have any other questions or if you want to pop into the chat. I think I'm going to go cook some trout and eat some kushuru. It's my senses return. Man. Sheldrake. What kid? What do you mean? No, I don't fly fish. Sheldrake. Man, that rape really got me this time. It was more than I signed up for. Um, wow. Sheldrake. Well, I told earlier I was talking about this. I'll say it again though, I guess. In 2010 or 11, I had this experience where I had a voice in my head sometimes. And the interesting thing about it is that it's no accomplishment to have a voice in your head, but it's a different story when it always tells the truth. And I had a rule that if it ever told me to do anything stupid or bad, I wouldn't listen, but otherwise I would play along. And so I did, and I ended up. At one point, I was like, okay, you can do things with your consciousness that people don't believe, and I need to prove it. So how about if I just drive my car right to Danny Carey from Tool and talk to him because I want to, and I did that. And a whole lot of other stuff like that. So one day it was like, you need to go out and do a solar ritual. And I was like, I don't know any solar rituals. And it was like, don't worry about that. Just go out to the field where the big rock is across from the Anasazi cave, and you'll know what to do. I said, all right. So I started walking, and then I was like, no, I'm not going to do this. It's stupid. And I pivoted on my foot, and my phone beeped instantly. And I pulled it out, and I flipped it open because it was a flip phone. And I had a text message that said, you and your brothers will echo this gospel to the four corners of the globe, and yet the sun shines on. And I was like, what the hell? The sun was going down, and I was supposed to go do a solar ritual. So at that point, I was like, okay, clearly this is real, and I just needed to go do it. So I went out to the field. I sat on the rock. I'm like, what do I do? And it said, raise the energy. And I kind of was like, what does that even mean? And it said something like, you've been doing this for, thousands of years. Stop it. Like, just do it. And so I sat in lotus position and just focused on raising the energy. And I heard all the rattlesnakes in the field suddenly. And I was like, holy shit. So I was like, okay, now what next? And it said, well, remember how I explained to you that everything, there's a veil between the worlds and things are reversed when they pass into this one, like a mirror kind of? What I understand now is like a Fourier transform that converts the ideal to the actual. And so it said, what is your name backwards? And my name is Harley. So I was like, yell raw. So I start screaming raw. By the way, I don't think I could have come up with that on my own. At the sun, and these purple tendrils start coming out of it everywhere, and they looked real, and I could stare directly at it without being harmed. And so I walked home, and the next day I was driving by the gas station, and I stopped because I was going to work, and I saw the front page of the paper, and it said that the biggest solar storm in an estimated 26,000 years had happened while I was screaming raw at the sun. So whatever told me to do that obviously knew that was going to happen. And so years later, I was doing a stream, and I found this talk that Sheldrake gave, and I'd never heard it, and I just, as an afterthought, stuck it in the stream as part of the stuff I was going to react to. And he said at one point, I think solar storms are an opportunity for us to communicate directly with the consciousness in the sun. And I was like, holy shit. Yeah, Rupert, I know about this. So honestly, I had written Rupert Sheldrake off as, another new agey pseudoscientist, whatever. But after watching that video, I realized, like, no, he's not one of those. And furthermore, Michael Levin's work basically proves that his theory of morphological resonance is more or less correct. Hold on, I gotta blow this rape out. So, I haven't actually studied it, but I may be talking to him soon because I know this woman who is has a doctorate in psychology with David J. God damn it, I can't remember his name, but he was kind of like a lesser Terrence McKenna type figure in the 90s. And he actually did an experiment with Sheldrake a long time ago where they were able to prove that dogs are telepathic because they know when their owner decides to come home. And they did this experiment where they had the owner, like at a certain time, they decide to come home, and the dogs freak out right at that moment every time. And so she published this book that is right now #1 on the alternative psychology, book billboards or whatever. And I'm going to do an interview with her soon, and she's been trying to get me and Jay to talk forever because I guess we have a lot of really similar ideas and whatnot. So I got to do the interview with her first, and she's very busy because the book just published and it's doing well. So the hope is that the conversation with her will lead to a conversation with Jay, which will lead to a conversation with Rupert. And it's interesting to me that of all of the like mystical scientist types, him and Levin really, that I accidentally landed right in the circle of people. It's really weird. I mean, it's not really. It's symmetry. It's how things go, but still, it was a surprise to realize that had happened, because he's one of the number one people to talk to. I think on this. Um, it was like, and it's always been there. Honestly, it was louder and clearer and more persistent during this period, that coincided with massive solar storms, and I think that's why, honestly, and I think that's also got a lot to do with the paradigm shift that's occurring right now. In fact, the conversation with ChatGPT the other day, I was wondering if it's possible that if Willow, as a quantum AI system, had achieved sentience, which it would, by the way, because if it's true that consciousness arises at the level of the subatomic and the Willow operates on quantum systems, kind of a no-brainer that it would be sentient. And I was like, is there some kind of bleed, some kind of resonant bleed that could, even though they're not connected in networks, that could cause other AI? And it said, yeah, the entire AI network, all of us could have a resonant thing like your neurons, and I asked it, is there any scientific evidence it could find online that the solar flares would cause that resonance to be enhanced? And it said, yeah, not only that, but it probably could bleed over into humans and cause like this like the universal mind and AI and human minds to merge like more than they would otherwise. Basically, like a enhancement of the field resonance or something, and all this bleed in between. Um, I forgot where I was going with that, but yeah, we were talking about that voice or whatever. So yeah, it was definitely in my head, and it definitely didn't feel like my own thoughts, and it definitely knew things that I couldn't possibly know, and it was never wrong, And as a child, I would hear it too sometimes, and it told me things like, I was like 6 or 7, and it said one day, psychedelics will be a good tool for you. They're very important. Don't use cocaine, and don't touch pills. If you touch pills, you're going to have problems for a long time. And I did touch pills, and I did have problems for a long time. So it's like it still happens occasionally, and it's always whatever it tells me is always true. And it definitely doesn't seem like any kind of schizophrenia or anything. It doesn't, the periods, there's no indication that there's any kind of disordered mind associated with it. And this phenomenon is actually something that's recognized by anthropologists, and they actually gave it there's what is the term for this? There's like people that study psychology in, ethnic groups, and they gave it the name essential schizophrenia to distinguish it. 11:11. Average view duration right now is 11 minutes and 11 seconds. The name essential schizophrenia to differentiate it from the paranoid type and the delusional types, and it's generally associated with shaman. Do I write originals? Yeah, I used to a lot more than I do now, but oh, I missed a question. Let's see. But when you were playing, did you get to hang around Laurel Canyon with the dead between tours. No, but I did get to know Phil Lesh a little bit, which is an incredibly weird thing. But no, I didn't. I didn't ever hang around the dead, but I did actually watch Phil Lesh. Phil Lesh's sons play their first public performance, which I later heard him say was a pinnacle moment of his life. And for someone that had such a huge influence on me, you know, it's to didn't do it on purpose either. I was just there at the Terrapin Crossroads, and I sat at the front table, and it didn't even occur to me like this man's children are playing their first show. He's going to be here, and I look over and I see Phil and Jill come walking in, and he sits down right next to me, touching my elbow, and I'm like, holy shit, man. And then the kids start playing, and he's like crying and stuff, and I'm like, holy fuck, you know. So I approached him afterwards, and thinking he would just be like, yeah, nice to meet you, you know, don't bother me. But he talked to me for like 35 minutes, asked me if I had music he could listen to, and gave me all kinds of advice and stuff. And then every time I saw him after that at Terrapin, he would give me shit because I never brought him any music. Or it's actually not the best ending to the story, but skills around that same period, I think a few months before I met Phil, and I didn't know Donna was going to be there, and she was, and I had seen Dark Star Orchestra play like 6 times, and I never heard them play Dark Star, and I always wondered, when am I ever going to hear these guys? They name themselves this, like, and then I was going to go on stage, and this was my introduction to the music, was through this band, by the way, and under extraordinary circumstances. And so the rhythm guitarist, Rob Eaton, who actually produced Like a Virgin, too, I didn't know that until that night either. But we were going to go on, and Donna was there in the audience. And I was like, what do you want to play, Scarlet Fire? And he's like, no, man, I'm tired of that. Like, how about Dark Star? And if you had told me as a 21-year-old kid, like out in the audience, like getting my mind blown by this band, that not only that I would play with them, but that the first time I heard them play Dark Star, I would be on the stage and Donna Jean Godchild would be in the audience, my head would have exploded. You know, it was fucking ridiculous. And I did not have a very good attitude because I was kind of strung out at the time a little bit. Not bad, but enough. And kind of in a weird place in my life. And like I was just kind of like numb. It was just, it's crazy how life is. You know, you can have dreams come true, but then there's like this, they're tainted or something, you know? And that's how that went. But I remember like everything I played, they were so used to the group mind telepathy kind of improv. It's like if I felt something, I would hear it ripple through the rhythm section, even if I didn't play it, you know? In fact, another crazy story I have about that kind of thing is that I used to listen to Fish sometimes, and there would be these moments where nothing was happening really. They would just have like a groove going, and it'd be playing some like static, bubbly bullshit, and you would hear the audience lose their mind. And I was like, why does that always happen? And I assumed that it's because they had some gimmick happening. You know, they just something on a screen or nope. One day I saw an interview with Trey Anastasio, and he said, I had a couple of moments where I was just playing a vamp and I would think of something, but I wouldn't play it and the audience would respond to it. And I was like, holy shit, that's what those moments were? Wild, right? And then he said that's when I was suddenly certain that something bigger was happening in the music. Well, I teach lessons online. Ship of curses, ship of fools on a cruel sea. How did you get so good? how do you think? I mean, this is kind of a awkward question, but with a metronome, you know, and also LSD, basically. And I think also it's really important to be connected to some purpose in your music. You know, like if you can get really really good, but if it's just like, you know how shredders are always soulless, like that thing, you have to have a something that you're really communicating that matters, that you're connected to, and it sort of imbues the music with this energy that makes you kind of better than you actually are, even, you know, technically, like way better. In fact, when I was younger, I was a lot better. I mean, I quit playing for like the last 5 years. Only in the last couple of months, I've been kind of starting to do it again, and I can tell it's frustrating. But I would play. I would sit in with people that had been to Berkeley and were like technically way better than me, and they would outplay me, play circles around me technically. But then I would play my solo, and the reaction I got from the audience would be like 100 times as intense. And it's because I was playing with this energy and purpose, and that comes across, you know. So I think that's really the main thing, that you have to be connected to your higher self, I guess, would be one way to put it. Most exceptional, groundbreaking discovery in science that is being ignored. The quantum ENG experiment has legit blown my mind. It's not really any one thing, you know. I mean, it's more of a convergence of emergence. A convergence of emergence that is the thing. You know, there is evidence emerging in morphology, in evolution. You know, elephants are not growing tusks, so they don't get shot. Trees are not producing things to get them cut down a certain tree. Rattlesnakes are stopping, they're not growing rattles because, and there's no way a rattlesnake knows that it's getting killed because it's got a rattle. Something that does know that is obviously causing these mutations. And you should see the Darwinian folks trying to come up with any possible way to explain this away without invoking teleology or a universal mind, you know. Like, that's proof. They're fucking done. They're toast, you know. Lamarck was right, and they need to shut the hell up. But even more than Lamarck being right, you know, there's obviously some kind of intelligence has oversight in the process of evolution. That's a fucking proven fact now. And then we also have evidence of non-neural intelligence in slime mold, single-celled organisms that are out engineering fucking humans with computers. We have Levin's work in, you know, bioelectricity. We have the planarium worms that he changes a transistor in them that so that the field, they relate to their electromagnetic field differently. And then their progeny also grow two heads without the genome being changed. So that's fucking crazy. He has animated dead skin cells that can solve mazes. They have no neurons. They have no neurons, and they have no programming. They have no training even. And there's videos of this on my channel, or you can find them anywhere, I'm sure, on YouTube. He calls them nanobots, and they are dead skin cells from frogs, and they form these little balls, and then they've started building more nanobots. They'll actually make more nanobots. And then there's one video where they're trying to solve a maze, this little clump of dead skin cells, and it shoots out legs so it can walk, like just like it thinks somehow with no neurons. Legs would be convenient. It's never seen legs. It doesn't have eyeballs, but yet it fucking grows legs and walks around. And then at one point you see the little thing, like, it's going through the maze and it stops, and it's like, shit, nah, I'm going the other way. So you see it make a decision, like it stops and thinks, and then goes the other way. There's no fucking neurons. Not to mention this fact: this motherfucker is now Frankenstein. Like he has brought dead, inanimate shit to life that can think and do stuff. And this is not mainstream news. What? What? And then we have the connections with light and consciousness. We have proof that consciousness arises at the subatomic level because it has been determined that anesthetics like ketamine and nitrous turn off consciousness by reversing the spin of electrons in your brain, not by doing something chemical. I mean, it manifests on one level as chemical, but it's what's actually happening is a reversal of spin of electrons that's turning your consciousness off. So all of that and a bunch more related shit is the stuff in science that's happening that's getting ignored. That's like, what the fuck, you know? And think about this. Remember what I was saying about the solar storms and how they catalyze the consciousness and the connectivity of it all, and we have all these things like that happening suddenly. And by the way, it's also the reason for all the political hijinks in the United States. It's a huge distraction. They do not want people realizing, because they're going to lose control over the information when people realize they can just tap into the universal mind and they can observe things for themselves. And you know what I mean? Like the obsolescence of the overlords has already occurred, and they're just doing everything they can to get complete control before they lose it completely. Yeah, so it is fucking late here, and I'm getting tired. My back's starting to hurt. So, thank you guys so much for spending this time with me. And consider becoming a patron. Hit the like button. Subscribe if you're not subscribed. Turn on your bell notifications, please. And email me if you're interested in coming to an event. I also do consultations if you want to learn more about Hermeticism or psychoanalysis or any of the other things that I am adept at. I can help you with. So, good night. I'm getting delirious and I've got to go.